Welcome to this Studio 5 special presentation. We're taking you inside the emotional new season of The Chosen through the eyes of its cast and creators as they bring the Bible to life.
And welcome back to this special edition of Studio 5. We're continuing our look at Season 4 of The Chosen. And spoiler alert, we've got some breaking news about the role of Rama. We're sitting down with the star, Yasmin Al-Bustami, to talk about that breaking news along with Brendan Potter, who plays Quintus.
So Mary Magdalene and Rama, now that Rama's part of the team, Mary Magdalene has a bit of a partner. She's got someone to talk to more, and so we had a nice little scene between the two of them. I was just reading about how they pray.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. You...
Die.
I didn't want to say that. So you're reading the script. you see that. What are you thinking?
What am I thinking? Okay, when I got the script, I just didn't have a chance to read it just yet. But then everybody on the cast, not everyone, but like people were asking me, like, "Oh my gosh, did you read it? Did you read it? What do you think?" And so already I knew, I'm like, "Oh, this is it. This is the time." I was sad, and have I dealt with my emotions? No, so I'm still sad.
Quintus, you play a role in there anywhere?
Oh yeah, I'm the killer. There's that little part. Remarkable. For the first time in a year, quarterly collections will have exceeded pilot's projections.
You know, it's sort of funny because for the last several seasons, you know, I would talk to Dallas and I would say, you know, Quintus has been doing a lot of threatening of people. He needs to actually do something about it. And Dallas would say, like, just relax. We're going to... I know how stories work. I've got this covered. Yeah, but he needs to do something. And you say, you know, it's a long series, you know, be patient. And then when I read these scripts in season 4, I texted him, I was like, hey, are you sure that he needs to do something? Like, you know, I kind of like immediately started backpedaling.
Describe Rama's relationship with Jesus we see in the first few episodes of this season. What's the dynamic between the two?
It's absolutely gorgeous. Rama she has such a big heart, and she has such a love for just people and the people in her life that it's kind of tragic in a way when you see how things end up with her dad. Because of course the only person that she would love to have in her life and be a part of her life that she's so close with is her dad. And that fact that she can't make him happy because of differing beliefs, and how you see she handles that. And it's, you know, it's a tough thing to go through. And she's dealing with it the best that she can. But then she has this cool dude over here, Jesus, and he's just there to support her in a way that she didn't even know that he would do, or would be even willing to do. And so it's just so cool to see how he becomes a part of her life in a way that she wasn't expecting.
You weren't thinking about it.
So, Brandon, Quintus has always been my favorite character. I don't know why.
Oh, boy.
But let me just say this. What's his mental state this season?
I think he is breaking. I think this is his breaking point. He's such a cerebral guy. You know, we've seen him sort of think his way through problems and chess master all of his subordinates and the people of his municipality, right? And in this season, that goes away. It's pure emotion and gut and rage, and I think his mental state is a little broken right now.
The biggest surprise on this Chosen journey has been
the explosiveness.
I mean, I'm in the show, I've read the scripts, I've seen the episodes. I know that humanity is at the core, you know? But I can continue to be taken with people's stories and journeys and the sort of master craftsmanship. You're dismissed.
Thank you, Peter.
Of course, we'll miss seeing her on The Chosen, but you can find her on network primetime television series. And you can hear the voice of Brendan Potter in a number of things, including animated films. Still ahead, he's the man behind the masterpiece, The Chosen. How would you describe this season, first for Jesus and then for those chosen to follow him, if you will? How would you describe it?
a good perspective on this season to notice is that this time Jesus is weary and heavy laden, and he needs rest. We see him throughout the season. Sometimes he even gets comforted by someone else.
Dallas Jenkins sits down with Studio 5 and shares more on what to expect for Season 4. And welcome back to this special edition of Studio 5 as we continue our look at Season 4 of The Chosen. Dallas Jenkins is the man behind this masterpiece, and he's sitting down with us to give us an inside look at all that you can expect this season.
Jesus healed the withered hand. The disciples were all lined up here, and then Jesus said,
"Interesting point."
Walked right out there. Now it's Laz's living room with no roof, which is why it's empty for the rain.
How would you describe this season, first for Jesus and then for those chosen to follow him, if you will? How would you describe it?
Well, in Season 3, we talked about that the theme was, "Come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest." I think a good thing of a good perspective on this season to notice is that this time Jesus is weary and heavy laden, and he needs rest.
Yeah.
We see him throughout the season. Sometimes he even gets comforted by someone else. As we get closer and closer to Holy Week, we see in Scripture that Jesus got more frustrated, got more brokenhearted. He wept over the city of Jerusalem. He was frustrated at the religious leaders that they weren't getting his message. And then, yes, got frustrated at those who were chosen to follow him because they were still not quite getting what he was preaching. And he realized they're probably not going to get it until I die. And that's just as devastating, I think, for him as the death itself. And so this is the transition towards that in Season 4. And I think Season 4 in many ways is the beginning of the end.
The man of sorrows, acquainted with grief.
I hear that, and I know watching, I just felt like as I'm hearing him talk, especially he's having a conversation with his mother, I'm like, I feel like he's describing us to a degree today. And I know this is scripted for back then, but I feel like that's the hope, and that's the whole conceit of the show is seeing Jesus through the eyes of those who met him. And when you do that, you realize their struggles, their questions, their doubts were the same as ours are today. And hopefully the answer is the same. But I do think that we have the luxury that the disciples didn't have, as we can look back on it in retrospect. We sometimes read these stories and we're like, how could they not get it? It was so obvious. He was telling them. And we're like, and you got to remember the context of the time, the culture, their religious faith. They were so anticipating a Messiah who would be a conquering leader that when they finally found him, it was very hard for them to get out of that, of what they thought that would look like. And he just kept saying, no, I'm here for your heart. I'm here for your heart. We're not going to win a war just yet. And they just couldn't grasp it. And so hopefully we don't make those same mistakes. This production seems to continue to grow. We've got the fourth season, the entire fourth season going to be available in theaters. It grows every time I talk to you. What's the blessing in that, and what's the burden?
I think they're one and the same. And honestly, and I'm not just saying this to skirt the question, I really just don't think about that very much.
Wow.
I think the show demands certain things each season. Season 4 demanded a bigger scale. Time to shoot, every play. So in a lot of ways, that's exciting and that's fun and it's very gratifying. But like you said, it can be a burden, not because it's overwhelming, but because I've still got 3 seasons left. When I sit in front of the blank page, it doesn't care how successful or big the previous season was or how excited the audience was about it. It's a blank page that we have to still make good television that honors the character and intentions of Jesus in the Gospels. So I can't think too much about the burden or the blessing. When season 7 is over, and if I'm thrilled with the show, you and I will sit down and I will go, finally, I can be excited and I can be proud and we can rest for a little bit and the burden doesn't matter anymore and the blessing doesn't matter anymore. It's just we can just appreciate the impact it's having.
That said, we are sitting at the start of season 4, so we know season 4 is complete. How much of this series, we're talking about 7, is done in your head or on paper right now?
So season 5 is written. We're still making some final adjustments to it. In just a few weeks or so, we'll probably get together to start outlining season 6 and 7. Now, when we first sat down 5 years ago, we started from the end. Like we plotted out the whole storyline, and then we worked our way backwards. So where does this story end? We know there's the resurrection, but we're going to go a little further than that. Okay, So then how do we get there? All right, what's the end of season 1? How do we get there? What's the end of episode 1? So we've had a good idea of the general approach to where we're going from the beginning, but now we gotta pull it off.
And Dallas Jenkins is a very busy man. Season 4 of The Chosen is already in the books for him, and right now he is in a cold Canada shooting the best Christmas pageant ever. We'll have more on this in the coming weeks right here on Studio 5.
Still ahead, he plays Shmuel.
I play the hero of the show, really, which is the Pharisee who thinks that Jesus is a false prophet. And so he's at first very skeptical of the way Jesus arrives on the scene and then gets increasingly convinced that he's a false prophet.
We sit down with actor Sean Sharmer to talk more about his role in Season 4 of The Chosen.
I'm Sean from The Chosen. You're watching Studio 5 with Ephraim Graham.
And welcome back to Studio 5 as we continue our look at The Chosen. We're sitting down now with Sean Sharma. He plays the role of Shmuel.
Welcome to filmmaking.
And action.
So Sean, remind us, as if we need reminding, who are you in The Chosen?
I play the hero of the show, really, which is the Pharisee who thinks that Jesus is a false prophet.
It would appear that we now want the same thing as Pilate.
And so he's at first very skeptical of the way Jesus arrives on the scene and then gets increasingly convinced that he's a false prophet and eventually is really trying to get the Sanhedrin to activate against Jesus. And then we've seen, at least at the end of season 3, that he may be having a change of heart.
Where do we see him, as much as you can tell me, in season 4? What are we looking at?
It's already been so much fun to shoot season 4 because after meeting Jesus, we start to see a new side of Shmuel that we haven't had a chance to see yet. And so all I can tell you is that meeting Jesus made an impact on him.
Do you see any of yourself in this character?
1,000,000%. Because I've experienced this in my own life where sometimes I am so convinced of something it's hard for me to see the truth. So if we were alive 2,000 years ago, would everybody have immediately recognized Jesus as the Messiah? That's the question that Shmuel kind of poses.
This series has certainly changed the lives of many people. Being this closely involved in part of creation, has it changed you in any way?
There's no story that touches more people's lives than this story. So of all the stories I could tell as an actor that would be meaningful to people and meaningful to me, this would be that story, and I somehow ended up in this position.
The fan response to the show is incredible. I've been in the presence of many fans just to see their reaction. Any stories or anything happen to you with a fan that you could share?
Oh gosh, yeah, you know, we did the premiere of season 3 in Atlanta. There was one woman that was there who's like face dropped as soon as I was being pulled away. So I said, hold on, and I went and said, hey, hi. And she was so glad that I turned around and talked to her because she said that my character on the show, as hard as this is for me to believe, was the storyline that really impacted her the most because of her own issues with, accepting what is true and all of that. And so to know that my performance made such a big impact on her, to see someone's heart drop just because I'm walking away, she doesn't know me. But that was such a cool moment to just make her feel seen and validated from the person who's played a role in a show that really helped her on her faith journey. So that was a really special moment.
What is it about this series that has it doing so well, continuously growing? We are not where we were when we first started with the series. What is it about the show? What is it?
I think it's because it's the first time we've been able to dive really, really deep into an imagined, plausible world that the story of Jesus and those who knew him takes place. So I think this is unlike anything else that has been created about a story that so many people have been taught their entire lives.
I am rejected by others.
I know, but not by the Messiah.
And John Sharma is the founder of the Storytellers Conservatory. It's an on-camera acting training studio.
Still to come.
My people were
powerful warriors, even if they did surrender.
I believe they sensibly joined the winning team, Dominus.
Sensibly.
My only allegiance is to Rome.
Kirk Waller talks about playing Gaius and how it relates to his real life.
I've done a lot more reading and a lot more thinking, and it's just bringing me closer to Jesus, to God, his message, you know, that's universal.
And welcome back to this Studio 5 preview of Chosen Season 4. Next up on the rundown is Kirk Waller. He plays the role of Gaius.
Gaius, I've reviewed your service records. You're Germanic.
My people were
powerful warriors, even if they did surrender.
I believe they sensibly joined the winning team, Dominus.
Sensibly.
My only allegiance is to Rome.
Kirk, you play the role of Gaius.
Yes, sir.
Who is Gaius then versus now as we begin this 4th season?
Well, he's always been a Roman. So he's growing and changing and hearing Jesus' message and his beliefs, and he's starting to fall for him.
Senior leaders in every district should question and expose Jesus.
How does Gaius' story connect with Kirk's story?
Flat out, it's just brought me closer to Jesus' message. You know, I thought I understood it, but the show is making me understand it on a much deeper level because of the journey that Gaius is taking. It's brought Kirk closer to that love and to that message.
How would you describe the season we're entering?
I guess it's gonna get ugly. It's like everything is sort of, it's heating up, you know? Like Jesus is feeling it too. You know, like he's getting it. He understands what's going on and it's gonna happen to the disciples, and the disciples are starting to get that too. Wait a minute, what am I really signing up for here? So there's a lot of that. And then even on the Roman side and for Gaius, there's a lot of stuff. But I also think there's a great deal of hope.
Has the reaction to the series surprised you?
Boy, that's a great question. Surprised? I don't know. As an actor, you're just honored and blessed to be working, and you want to work, and you would love to have an impact if you possibly can. I've never been a part of something so successful that's had such impact, so I'm really surprised by that and so grateful to be here. But in another way, no, I'm not surprised at all, because I know everyone's probably saying this, but Jesus' message is really cool. You know? Like, can we just treat each other with respect? Can I just put you ahead of me? Like, who can't get behind that? I mean, that's wisdom for everybody. Nationality, color, creed, it doesn't matter. So am I surprised that people are digging that? No.
You were there, waiting. I guess the darkness is not dark to you. At least, not always.
Kirk Waller has a long list of stage and on-screen productions, including a role in Steven Spielberg's Minority Report. With that, we only have a few moments left in today's special edition of Studio 5. Let's give that to the man who plays Jesus. Jonathan Rumi has today's final word.
Join me in prayer for a little while.
Will you speak with me after?
Is season 4 the most emotional season for Jesus to date?
Yes, it has been. Yeah, it's challenging, emotional. Yeah, it was the hardest season on so many levels for, I think, all of us.
Look at these people! What have you done for them?
Watching it, I mean, you are so now identified with Christ in popular culture. Has playing Jesus made it difficult to be Jonathan?
At times. I explore this in a bit in a docuseries I just released called Jonathan and Jesus. And so you kind of get to see that trajectory from earlier on in my career playing Jesus to almost present day. And yeah, it can be a challenge, but it's one that at the end of the day, I'm grateful to be a part of it because it's just doing so much for so many people.
We're now sitting really in the middle. So we've got 3 behind and 3 ahead. What's that feel like? I remember talking to you before the start of season 1.
I think you were my first official interview.
Yes.
Yeah. It's surreal, man. It's yeah, it's a trip. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to be able to really experience what all of it means until it's done. I'm trying to just be present and enjoy every moment of the process.
Don't want to give too much away, but there's a moment that you would think Jesus should be the answer to change a difficult situation, and you don't.
Yeah. Even some things the Father does not tell me, you know. I think that's going to be one that people wrestle with, and that is what we wrestle with as believers. Why this and not that? Why them and not me? Why me and not them? And, you know, that's where trust and faith and surrender come into the equation of the spiritual life.
You told us it would be like that. Was how you lived.
What an awesome final word. Thank you so much, Jonathan Roumie. That is going to do it for this edition of Studio 5. Until next time, make time to uplift someone that you know, and then come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Thank you so much for joining us for this special, The Chosen edition of Studio 5.